Crack on. All right, well, it's a good evening from us as it's about just gone 8 o'clock on the 11th of the 11th. So we have remembered them today and yesterday. So, although I must say we're slightly missed in that none of us are wearing a poppy. Now, Nicholas might be wearing a poppy, but
just took a man off for the year.
he seems to have frozen. Yes, I've had my Civic one on today.
Two little ones,
two little ones. Yes.
If we're outside, you can see I have my little soldier in the window with the red light on him.
And it's a remiss of me because I'm not putting any poppies on the screen either, which is a little bit naughty. No, never mind. There we go. So we are on to episode 64, which has been a little bit of a hassle getting these two together in the same one in the same room, but in the same cyberspace. But I've just about managed it. In fact, so much so that I've got another 65 already in the can ready. So we might try and do a couple short ones before Christmas because obviously we'll get caught up in all of that. So as we mentioned last time, this was a little bit of a catch up because we've all been out and about. Nicholas and Bruce using their rail vouchers. I've been on a little holiday. So tonight we're going to try and catch up a little bit. We'll do the normal little catch up on some beery news, some quite interesting things, and again, quite spookily, a lot of things hitting the press that we've talked about on this podcast. So I'm sure, and I must be those Chinese people who are listening to us and then feeding things into national newspapers. Nicholas is trying to show us something glowy on the thing now, which
that's my window.
Right, his window, lovely, yes. Very good. But those are new tube. There's a very even smaller little thing now coming up. There you go. Right. So, good evening, gentlemen. How are we both? Are we all right?
All right.
Yes, fine, thank you. Although I did have a near-death experience on Saturday morning. We were going to Howard House on Saturday morning, and a motorcycle came alongside the A64, and then it was weaving out of cars, came alongside us, and bobbed in front of us. So simultaneously, we all said, "Stupid bastard!" And then he just ran to the central carriageway, got flung about 15 foot in the air, went sliding down the A64 in front of us. We had to jink to the left to avoid him, but then his motorcycle crashed off the A64 and was coming towards, because he was off so fast, had the same energy as the speed of the car. So we had to go to the left again, and thank God there was nothing on the left. So I suspect he was very seriously injured. We did have to go about a mile, ring the police, see what we'd said, and I believe the people told the dash cam later. So yeah, it was quite spectacular. It was like watching one of those Channel 5 programs with the dash cams and falling in front of your eyes. It was
a nice tune start to the podcast there, Bruce. Thank you for that one.
Do you still manage to get your pie and your pint though, Bruce?
I did, yes.
Yeah. Normal serving was you. Well, yeah, I got because we actually had a Friday off which we don't normally have because I'm playing a band and we normally practice on Friday night, but there was no band on Friday, so I went for my haircut and I thought, oh, sod it, I'm going to have a few beers. So I had some really good beers actually, including some Old Tom, which I will come back to. And then unfortunately on Saturday we had a rugby reunion. We had a bit of a get together at the rugby club, and the rugby club ran out of beer. So when I got there, they only had Bass on, and that soon went. Then then the Guinness went. So I ended up drinking quite a lot of Brixton IPA, which was Anyway, there we go.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, let's catch up.
Best beer I've had this year so far, I'd come across it was the Goff's Brewery, which apparently is very big in the Cotswolds. I never heard of it, but they had Volunteer Arms on it down the road from us. It was Goff's Brewery Jester, and it was absolutely superb.
Well, I've got to say, I'm going to do it next episode. I was just reflecting on Saturday. I've had some absolutely stunning beers over the last few weeks, and I've kind of montaged them all together, but really different beers as well from all over the place. But they're just maybe it's that time of year, although I do quite like a blonde beer, but there's some really nice autumnal, a really nice red porter on there. On Friday night, which was really, really nice. So let's just do a few starts. As I said, we mentioned last time that we have some interesting stats on the podcast. We're slightly down. We're down to 166, so 10% down. This is for October compared to September. And unfortunately, we seem to have lost our Chinese listeners. At one point, we were up to 33 downloads. But Brazil has suddenly appeared on our stats list. So we've now got 25 listeners in Brazil for some weird reason. 3 in Bangladesh, which again is very, very interesting. And Nicholas, hope you can decipher this one for us. So we also had some feedback on our YouTube channel from an Eric Bell, who said, I am watching the episode 63 with Angus, watching Son of Keegan. So I hope you can decipher that. So yes, Mr. Bell is one of your graduate yes. chummies.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was Angus's. Angus.
All right. Okay.
Best pal. But yeah, he didn't go to university. But I certainly know of the dinger.
All right. Absolutely. Okay. And just to kind of give you an image of that, we were on a little steam train on the Festiniog Railway at half term, and coming down the carriage was a spitting image of a fit 13-year-old Nicholas Hill. With both my wife and son said, "It's Uncle Nick." And this fine young man called David was a very good little conductor, obviously doing it in his holidays. But to give you a sense of why they're calling him Young Keegan, that was very similar to Nicholas's hairdo back in the 1980s. So there we go, a little bit of fun.
Mine was a bit more mullety.
Bit more mullety. So as I said,
the boys come from Liverpool, you see. So that was the nickname they gave me.
So back in episode 62, we whatever we do on podcasts, rambled wittingly about fake lager and everything else, and it's gone mad. In fact, Nick sent me some more stuff this week, which again I'll save until next week. But it does make a bit of sense because as I'll show in the middle, and so both the mainstream press and quite a lot of the kind of beery press were all talking about these fake brands. A lot of it to do with, I think it's Innes and Gunn. Innes and Gunn, who are obviously famous Newcastle Scottish brewers, had done a survey, which was quite shocking, really, what it found. But it did echo a little bit of what we've talked about, and then Lad Bible picked it up, and they, I thought that was quite a good article they did, and then I say it was all over the kind of press, really, and just some of the headlines. Only 1 in 10 knew that most of these continental beers that we drink in the UK now are actually brewed in the UK. Only 1 in 10 knew that. Nearly everybody, and this was mainly aimed at 28 to 43-year-olds, said they would pay more for continental beer because it's brewed better, and much better than it would be if it was brewed in the UK. 7 out of 10 thought that the beer in Britain was not as good as the beer brewed elsewhere, despite the beer they thought they liked was brewed in bloody Britain. So it was quite shocking, really. And again, the idea that Spain made better beer. But I think the Innes and Gunn thing, we'll come back to that, because I know Nick gleaned another interesting little article about what they've been doing as well. I think with Aldi or Lidl, wasn't it? They've been playing a little game to see what happens. But it's quite baffling,
that was the advert in the news article.
Oh, right, okay. But
so
I think
they've been doing it themselves, yeah.
I think it's linked to this. And again, it's all this kind of crap about that. Spanish beer is more exotic. It's used in more traditional methods, and I think to me again it just spits, doesn't it? And as somebody said, I think it's what was it? Pete Brown put something on that was an article he'd written about. This again is just kind of the big brewers, Carlsberg people just wanting to kill off the British heritage of brewing. Britain's got, as I said, the amount of beers that you can drink in British pubs.
That said, I'm concerned. I read something yesterday that Timothy Taylor's has done a collab with Heineken. Now, why on earth would Taylor's get into bed with Heineken? All right, they might be thinking, well, let's try and get our beer in their pubs. But I would have thought Taylor's have a big enough distribution as it is, without getting into bed with Heineken to make a 3.4 sort of a light lager beer. So I don't know what's happening there. I'm just hoping it ain't going to go the same way that Fuller's did, that fiercely independent family-owned business, and all of a sudden, Asahi came along, started waving pound notes. Timothy Taylor's must be a very attractive proposition for any of the big brewers, simply because of the reputation and name they've got, and the fact that there is distribution around the country already. But anyway, that might be another case. Watch that space. But I'll pick the article up and say I can give you a bit more information about that as well. What the name of the beer is or was, and who they're collabing it with.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see kind of what happens next. Now, I guess we're now ripe for a new thing. I think hazy pale ales seem to have kind of disappeared slightly. Stouts were all the rage, weren't they? But again, they seem to
That hazy
slightly.
or lazy, because as far as I'm concerned, it's just lazy brewing.
Bit of both, and then obviously we had all these continental
to make
beers.
out. It's meant to be like that. To me, it's no. They've not let it settle long enough, and they've not been careful when they've been bloody.
Well, it may well be that this new real beer is what's going to take over, isn't it? Because again, and again, I guess it's I guess I'd sit on the fence. If you can get a pint of what tastes like cask beer and it's consistently good, but I suppose that's what keg was supposed to do, and that didn't work out well, did it?
No.
And again, just another thing that again.
Well, it is keg. It's just keg, but the bringing it through an amp pump, but they're not actually doing that through the amp pump. All they're doing is turning the tap on.
Yeah, but
as we've said, there's a local brewery not 30, 40 miles away from here.
Whitby Brewery doing
use that same thing.
Yeah, and quite a few do kind of gravity. They'll claim it's gravity fed, won't they? But anyway,
no, it's not. Gravity needs to be in the air, and their cellars certainly out in the air.
And then again, there was another thing here, opinion, very on that similar theme, really, just about the death of all the great breweries of the UK, Tetleys, Boddingtons, John Smiths, and Doombar, which again is another one that's had the heart ripped out of it, wasn't it? So it's just interesting. I said that quite a lot of things that we talk about suddenly appear in the beer press. Got to do a couple of these ones then. Probably the easiest one is, again, we kind of missed it really. I think we knew that it was happening, and actually Roger Protz tweeted about or X'd about it not so long ago. That obviously Sean and family have left the Maltings in York, and they put the pub up, I understand, for £1.5 million. And as you understand, Bruce, it's been bought, and it's going to be an Irish pub, the Dubliner.
It is pub on the quayside at Newcastle called the Dubliner. Right. It's very popular. Has music going on there. So apparently it's great atmosphere. I've never been to the Dubliner. I might try and go soon, but apparently it's going to have loads of live music on, which would be very good for the bands around York, because our two most famous pubs that have live music, the Roman Bath, is going to be turned to a craft tuning pub, and the Victoria Vaults has been sold by Appleton Roebuck Estates. That's gone as well. That might not be a bad thing. I don't suppose there'll be a lot of cask ale there, but I did go to the Maltings on the last night.
Another outlet for that mass-produced horrible black stuff that you seem to like, Bruce, but has got no taste and no soul to it. Anyway, there we are.
And again, I do worry about the size of that pub as a music venue. It's not, although it looks quite big from the outside, it's not huge inside, is it? And that was part of its kind of I don't know, atmosphere. And it feels quite. I don't know, they've extended it a little bit out the other end, but it's still not. You've got a band playing at one end of that room. It's not going to be quiet, is it? It's going to be quite loud, isn't it? So.
And I would imagine that Dublin on the quayside has hundreds and hundreds of people there to turn into the sort of money making. You can't possibly replicate that in the Maltings, can he?
No. So I presume they won't let him bands play on the little beer garden at the side, really, on that terrace. I can't see them land bands play there, because you've got that 5-star hotel next door for a start, which would kick off, wouldn't they? Anyway, we'll see. And then again, okay, we've had a little bit of, well, we're not so much a journalist, but again, I think this other thing gets me, and there was something in one of the papers the other day, actually in one of the beer papers, about where are all the good people writing about beer? I thought, well, it's almost impossible, because it's you feckers write the same thing over again, and then we get really lazy journalism like the one we've currently got on the screen. So this was a story that it was run by Yorkshire Live, but it's run by Teesside Live. It was run by almost all the North. And typical what happens now is one story just gets recirculated around that agency. And it was about a journalist, a female journalist, who with her father set off to do the walk we've talked about across the North York Moors. It's the 12 pub walk, although they got it wrong straight away. So it's the 8 pub walk, because it's the gallon. It's called the gallon walk, but they got it wrong by saying it's 12 pubs and 8 miles. Well, if it was 12 pubs and 8 miles, it wouldn't be a gallon, would it? It'd be a gallon and a half. So for the start, the fucking bloody title's wrong. I'm very wrong. So they also then only actually ended up visiting 3 of the 8 pubs on the tour. They actually then had to use a train twice, which would have cost them an arm and a leg. So they didn't actually walk very far. And they talked about sitting in a pub doing intensive research about where they were going to go and how they were going to get there. And then we're very shocked to find that the Birchall Inn didn't do any hot food. just did pork pies. Well, everybody knows that's all they've ever done is pork pies, isn't it?
Oh,
And
no,
the little sweet shop next
garbage,
door.
yeah.
The actual gallon walk starts at Egton, but they started at Gothland because they didn't think there was there'd be anywhere secure to park their car. I don't know how secure you're going to find a North Yorkshire Moors village, but there we go.
And the crazy thing about all this is that the editor of this site decided to print this. I mean, proper journalism is just a dying thing. It's so sad.
Yeah, this was printed. It was
Well,
well, this was also printed in the proper paper as well. So it was printed in the paper and on the online edition. And I think I think they actually only drank a drink in one pub, and they had a Callan and a Coke. So there you go, very low journalism. Just to put it all right, Nicholas, there's
yeah.
you with a proper beer and a proper choo-choo train somewhere on the 8-gallon walk, just to show that it can be done, and you can drink real ale, and you can look at steam trains. There you go. So rant
That
over.
looks nice.
That looks
I
nice.
did actually speak to a lady last year, it was, in my old job, and she'd been a business journalist for Mirror Group newspapers, been a journalist all her life. And one day, look, said, I'm really sorry, he says, we're going to have to make you redundant. He said, sadly, he says, people don't want to read proper serious journalism anymore. He says, I can pay an influencer £50, he says, to review oldie little Twix imitations against proper Twix. He goes, I'll get thousands of views, he says. And she was heartbroken, and this is what journalism has come down to, really, hasn't it? Garbage like
As
that.
far as Bruce, as far as printed paper is concerned, they're not to provide people news. All they are is an advertisement for them. And I learnt that from the press photojournalists, photographers. Basically, used to have a reporter, a photographer, then it cut down to a photographer, and they don't even send a photographer anymore. And the last photographer I ever spoke to, he said, as far as the newspaper people are concerned, it's not a case of providing news. It's just to sell advertising. So certainly printed version of newspapers now, the content is absolutely bloody useless. And sadly, that's local and regional newspapers, because they're all owned by the Americans. Certainly the Yorkshire newspaper groups in our area, Bruce, they're owned by 2 American companies. So are they bothered about providing local news? Nah, it's just the advertisements.
It's rubbish.
Well, it's collected. Yeah, I mean, we actually had our well, he was the ex-editor of our local paper. I mean, we've had, I mean, we still do have a daily local paper, a Stoke-on-Trent paper, the Sentinel, which is quite amazing in the 2024.
Yeah.
They used to have 41 journalists working on that one paper, 41 journalists based in Stoke-on-Trent, and he said now they have 2, I think, and they tend to be club reporters. He said that's why you get news in Stoke about Derby and Nottingham, because it's just lazy, and what he said is clicks. It's just clicks. They don't. The paper's there for the old generation, and it's all about the live edition and the clicks that you get on. And even, to have some people who are stooges to write comments to kind of rile people up to get even more clicks.
Yeah.
And if you notice, if you ever try and make a comment in a local paper, the actual interface is the shittest interface ever, because what it does, it keeps looking at adverts while you're trying to find the bloody comments. Anyway, there we go. Right, Robinson's comes up quite frequently on our little podcast, and we had a very nice trip to Stockport one summer ago, and it is the 150th year, sorry, 125 years, sorry, of Old Tom this year, and apparently Old Tom was the brewery cat, and inspired this ale. And I think what they've said is that for this month or this batch, they're actually printing the original labels on bottles, etc. And I've got to say, I did manage to find some. I didn't get to have a taste of some. I've not had it for ages, actually. And I forgot it was 8.5%. So it's not for the faint-hearted. So our local real ale, the Bridge Street Rail House, sensibly, he was selling it was £4 for a half pint. And I've got to say, it was like velvet. It was like the black and white stuff Nicholas mentioned before, but of the old days. It was very, very nice. It was obviously quite strong, 8.5%, but well worth. If you can dig it out, it's well worth. I don't know how much they brewed of it, but it was definitely worth picking it out.
Were you with me that time, Bruce, when we went to the Black Horse in Preston? And I recall seeing it on the bar. And I said, I'm surprised to see that. And the lad behind the bar said, we're one of the pubs that does get it when it's been brewed and it's been sent out to the pubs. And I said something like, well, I wouldn't want more than a pint of that. And he turned, I'm sure he said, the record, somebody came and had 8 pints of it.
Oh, my
managed to stagger out after 8 pints of Old Tom. Yeah.
Great.
So that was a record in the Black Horse, but yeah,
Well,
it'd be nice to try an Amco.
I had a 6.5% before that in Weatherspoons, and then I had an 8.5. So I was about ready once I'd finished that. I wasn't moving much else. And then this other one I came across, and again, this is another one that was interesting. This is actually in Weatherspoons in North Wales on the way home from holiday. We called into Bangor, and there's a very interesting pub. I think Nick's been there. I know. I'll share it later on. A little bit disappointing. Actually, I was only there for breakfast, so I wasn't drinking. But a bit disappointed in their beer offer. In fact, there were no Welsh beers on at all, despite being surrounded by some great breweries. But this one caught my eye, and I wasn't sure what it was at the time. Horryheim Pale Ale. But then when I looked into it, apparently this is a Japanese beer that's exclusively for JD Weatherspoons by a bank. Well, what was Banks' Brewery again? Sadly, no longer Banks' Brewery anymore. But I thought that was quite interesting as well. Another whatever the word is, left side.
Well, they do these. Yeah, no, they do these for the beer festivals. So they always like have collabs with maybe 8 to 10 British breweries, and they bring people across from all over the world. So from Japan, New Zealand, America, Canada, Italy. So every time Wetherspoons Beer Festival's on, they always have these collabs, and they use the well-known traditional breweries. So sort of like Shepherdney, Madnams. They've all been taken part in the past. I have to admit that once again, it brings it home to me how lucky we are in this country, the beers that are produced over here. Because I've tried a lot of these continental collab beers, and to be honest with you, I've never stood back and went, wow, that was a really great beer. I wish I was living in that country. You know, they all seem to be catching up still in terms of being able to match the quality of the beers that our brewers over here can produce full time, sort of thing.
So I think I've seen again another couple of Wetherspoons. So I've not tried it yet, so I can't say what it tasted like. But just that was interesting. And then again, just some really good news. Again, we've mentioned this pub a few times, and it featured in one of our podcasts, the Britain's Protection, deep in Manchester, towards the end of what's it called? That street that it's on, not Petersgate, the other main street, isn't it? It's been under a little bit of threat. It was owned by Star Pubs, which are part of Heineken, and surrounded by tower blocks, and there was some concern, wasn't there, that they were the brewery were going to sell it. There's been a little bit of an ongoing protest and support group. Anyway, it is suggested that they've just been given an extended the lease, and they've managed to at least stay of execution following legal hearings. Staff now agreed to renew Alan and Maxley for another 10 years. So hopefully the Britain's Protection, which has been there since about 1850 or something, has got another 10 years at least.
Well, it must be. I mean, it must be the interior. It must be listed. It must be at least grade 1 listed, I would have thought.
Yeah.
So there's not much they could do with it, to be honest with you. You know, when Cymru were pushing the community assets and making sure that people were letting them know about pubs and drinking holes that were worthy of protection, either for architecture or whatever else. They've been doing a lot of work on that for the last few years. And so, in terms of what Heineken would be able to do with that building, other than run it as a pub, I would say it'd be very, very difficult simply because of its unique interior. So maybe that's why they decided to backtrack and realise themselves that with the situation at the moment, especially with a place like the Crooked House, and what's been going on in London, people knocking pubs down overnight, and the authorities getting a little bit more tougher now. Heineken have probably realised it's not worth attempting to do something like that because there's a lot more people got their eye on it than maybe they would have had 15, 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah, the reputational damage would have been colossal, wouldn't it?
Okay,
well, yes and no. Some of these massive breweries don't seem to worry about that, Bruce. But in terms of the legal issues, in terms of having to rebuild it brick by brick again, which is what's still hanging over the people of the Crooked House, and there's at least a couple of places in London, then it's down to finance again, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
Right, let's get on some beery highlights then. So, as I mentioned, we've got quite a bit to get through yet. So we'll be having a break shortly, but we've got. I'm going to hem Bruce down to one little visit that he went up to the delight that is Blackpool. And I don't think there's a lot of drinking went on per se, Bruce, and he managed to find lots of tasty treats. And he did end up in the Tower Ballroom, So that's why we called
Sounds
it
familiar.
Strictly Ballroom. And he did reckon it would better been at Wetherspoon. So come on, you've got 4 minutes. Tell us a little bit about Blackpool and the drinking scene in Blackpool.
Well, sadly, as I said, we did. Unfortunately, we could find. To be fair, there's a new development near Blackpool North Station now, which seems to get an awful lot of life to the place, really. And there was a real ale bar which was open on the way back, but we had got late. So as you've also quite put it right out, there's no room to cover, no chance to cover any beers, really. But we did visit one or two other famous places. The Abingdon Barbecue, first is there for me. That's a Blackpool institution, only minutes from Blackpool North Station. You kind of come out, walk 3 minutes down Abingdon Road, and then there's this astonishing line of people. The six by the line of people. You go in a shop, bursting at the seams like huge joints of meat, thousands of pies, wonderful smell, and I say, astonishing value for us. I mean, we went in there, you have an army of ladies chopping these joints up with electric knives. So I got a huge soft Lancashire bap stuffed full of gammon and sausages for about £2.80. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely. If you're still going, you've got Abingdon Barbecue. I only saw it through a YouTube video. I'm going to go there. So say looking for a beer. I must admit we did go by a pub called the Mitre by the side of the Blackpool. In fact, it kind of looked okay. And I say I imagine nobody can, but Wetherspoons dominate Blackpool, and probably quite rightly so, really, because the other pubs are absolutely shocking. I mean, they're astonishing. There's no micro bars or any there. It's the one place actually that's crying out for a Sam Smith's pub. I could go there, get away from all the madness, sit down, roaring fire, no jukebox. I bet it'd be absolutely full, really. But yeah, I mean, at the Albert line, it was half.
Close in a very short space of time, Bruce. People's mentality to go to Blackpool, I'm sure they wouldn't not be on the phones or not swearing. So,
well, to be fair, there was a big mix of people in Blackpool at half term. We were quite shocked. You could clearly see some people. It was the first visit that took the kids there to see the lights.
And they were the ones like going.
Well, I don't know. People,
Kevin, don't look.
It was a Wednesday afternoon, wasn't that bad, really? But as enough people,
Sophia, don't look. Come away now.
No, I thought the lights brought in quite a nice crowd of people, really. I mean, it felt actually, I was quite amazed how busy it was. The weather wasn't great, but there was an awful lot of families there. But I say, to be fair, I can't mention that you can't blame Wetherspoons. The Albert line was just overwhelmed with people. And like I said there, to be fair, they had a maitre d' trying to manage the crowds, but they just found losing battle because there were just people spilling in. And they just couldn't cope with it. I think, like Nick said, we should have gone up to the Velvet Coaster, but time was getting on. They've also got a third one now called the Lytham Rakes, which is look very characterless, but I suppose better than the building being empty. But a Velvet Coaster's a nice one, isn't it? Now they have got a street food market now near Abingdon Street, the Abingdon Market. It was really quite cool as well, actually. Very un-Blackpool-like. Awful lots of great food options there. They have 2 craft beer bars, all run by Nomad Brewery as well. So that was probably the best option to get a drink there. But I'd say the micropub was called the Rail. Put on words, rail something near Blackpool North Station. And I say probably the nicest place we went to was a Tower Ballroom, but sadly no cask beer on. And what a shame, really. I know it's owned by Merlin now, but you think they'd make a bit of effort to support the local brews and things, wouldn't you, really? But yeah, £11 to go in there and take a look. And we did end out at Notaranis, which is probably the last piece of living Blackpool history, accessible to everybody. On Waterloo Road, we have this astonishing ice cream. When you do one flavour. They used something called the Madonna effect, which I found out about. There's only Notaranis and an ice cream cafe in Glasgow called the University Cafe. I'm sure Nick's seen it in the stuff from the war, where it's like an upside down little cone. You whip the ice cream around it. It's got a flavour all of its own. So I say sadly no beer, but yeah, I quite enjoyed our day in Blackpool, really. And I'd say the lights were quite
good timing. So we're going to take a break, guys. We'll be back after the break.